Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Queenie for those who don't know me. I don't know how to feel about this video because, so obviously by the title, Timmy and Zeta from Love Island USA, the most recent season, the winners actually, are no longer together. However, there are three sides to every story: his, hers, and the truth. And this is from the perspective of Zeta. It's not to nullify her experience, but I do have to make it clear that it's from one person's perspective. There's another perspective, and then there's obviously what happened, which we will never fully know, right? So she did an interview detailing what happened in their relationship and where things went wrong, and I will be sharing parts of the interview. I'll also put clips of the interview and then also be sharing my thoughts. But yeah, it's kind of weird for me because I was feeling like something about the relationship was inauthentic near the end, and I don't want to make this video seem like a gotcha or I told you. It's simply just sharing what she shared. So yeah, let's get into it. Before I do, please make sure to like this video, subscribe and hit the bell, leave a comment down below, and also do not send any hate to any of the people involved. Y'all, these are real people who went through a real relationship, but you know we're messy and we're going to talk about it. So I did take some notes. So if you see me glancing down, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at my notes. She details that as soon as they left the villa, Timmy went to New York, which is like where he's from, but he was living in LA. But the problem is it happened very soon after they were dead in the villa. And then she had even offered to take him to the airport at some point, and he was like, nah. And even being picked up from the hotel, I think her or his brother or roommate or something came to pick him up, and she was like, oh, so can I tag along? And it was like, nah. And there was another time too when she was on transportation with the other girls who were in the villa, and they were texting their boyfriends, texting their whoever's, and she was having no communication with this man. So it's clear he did not want her in his vicinity.
I think everyone who follows me and has followed our journey will know exactly what I'm talking about, because he went to New York immediately after he got outside of the villa. His roommate came to come pick him up and, had driven all the way from LA to come pick him up, even though we had been provided transportation to go back to LA. And then he didn't offer me a ride with his roommate. And the rest of us, Sydney, Deb and I, we rode back to LA together on the train. We're on the train, Sid and Isaiah texting, Deb and Jessie texting, carrying a vibe. And I'm just sat there, and Timmy and I are not texting at all.
Right.
But because I'm such a person who needs a lot of space, even in relationships, I didn't think too much of it. So I offered him a ride to the airport when he was going to New York, and he just dodged it. He was like, I'm actually leaving tomorrow morning. And I was like, I don't mind. I'll wake up at 6 a.m. and take you to the airport. That's fine with me. And he was like, yeah, I might actually push my flight till later tomorrow because I'm tired. I don't know if I'm going to make it early in the morning. So I'm like, okay, cool. Then the morning comes around. Then he texts me 10 a.m. He's like, oh, I'm at the airport. I actually decided I can go. So I was like,
What's going on? Right.
So one part in her story that really gets me was the fact that she said she had to reach out to her spiritual father, being her pastor, because she felt like, of course, being a Christian, she wanted to pray over the relationship as a whole. However, she felt like this relationship specifically was going to have a lot of turmoil. Trust your gut. Trust your gut. If you are in something and you feel like you're signing up for problems, leave that situation. Of course, easier said than done, but I'm just like, oh man, the fact that you reached out to your pastor specifically for the reason that you knew there were going to be many arrows coming at this relationship, baby, that was the biggest sign if I've ever heard of one. Furthermore, she goes on to say, even though he was taking time away from her deliberately, because it's not completely far off for people to want to decompress after a high pressure situation like this. But when you find your person, you think you'd want to spend a lot of time with them in the real world, take them around to things that you like to do, the people who you love and whatever. And I guess technically he did that because even though he was taking time away from her physically, he was like, oh, hang out with my sister. Unfortunately for Zeta, she did not appreciate the encounter she had.
That's fine. He's being a bit like spacey with text messaging and stuff. And I'm just like, okay. And then he sets me up to meet with his sister. So I thought, well, that's nice. Like, he needs space, but he's like, meet my family. Like, you lot chat. And then when we get back, like, we'll just get back on track. And my meeting with her was not something that I enjoyed.
Really?
No.
Why didn't you enjoy it?
I didn't like what was said.
Right. Okay.
At the meeting, but I just kind of played along with it because I was like, at this point, I need to get through this meeting with his sister. And then when he comes back from New York and I get to look into his eyes and see the same guy, then I will like see how I feel from there because it's about me and him at the end of the day.
So she did not go into the details. I'm sure she's trying to, preserve whatever. You don't want to share everybody's business like that, even if you're involved in the business. So cool. But this is where we start to see a trend of Timmy's sister being an issue. And I don't know if it's like Timmy's sister is problematic or Timmy and his sister's relationship itself is problematic. I'm not quite sure. However, obviously Zeta is English. So she wanted to go to the UK to introduce him to the family and all that stuff. And he was like, yeah, I'm down. But he kept the information that his sister was going to tag along until it was basically time to go there. And so Zeta was like, okay, yeah, no problem. Then the sister came and he had planned to stay with the sister and not with Zeta. So this is like very confusing to her because she's like, when were you going to communicate this stuff with me? And this just led to a myriad of just issues.
And we hop on the plane and then the moment we land, he's like, oh, my sister gets here tomorrow. And it's just one of those things where you're just like, okay, you know this stuff, but you're communicating it to me very like late. Yeah. And it's just like, what's the reason for that? Yeah. There has to be a reason. Yeah. I remember saying like, what am I going to tell my family? I feel like that's embarrassing to be like, he's not staying with me. And so then I asked him, I was like, why didn't you tell me this sooner? I feel like you, me and your sister could have gotten even like an Airbnb and we're like, all that, whatever, just to like, you're not there separate and I'm over here separate.
There's no disconnects.
Yeah, there's no disconnects. And he's like, my sister doesn't like that. Like, fine, that's fine. You want your private space, like, I get it, that's fine. So we go, like, meet my mum, all that kind of stuff. Everything is great. Like, my mum loved him. Sure, he's just like such a sweet guy. And she could still see that chemistry that she saw with us in the villa. So it's like, I want that to definitely be a point so people know, like, it's not just all the stuff that I'm saying that is quite uncomfortable to talk about. If it were just that, it wouldn't have lasted this long. I would have broken it up like that because I don't play that at all. And I'm very serious about finding my husband and like nurturing strong relationships.
So, I'm here just like, okay, if this is your partner, I have expressed that, or maybe she didn't express, but I'm going to assume that maybe she did. I've expressed that I've been uncomfortable in the presence of your sister, or if I'm going to be around your sister, I'd like you to be there too. Wouldn't you think that there would be some kind of a push for Timmy to rectify the situation with the sister to kind of mend the relationship between them because these are his women in his life. You want them to get along. You want them to be in the same space and not feel tension. But he never made an effort, and he deliberately made an effort to segregate the two of them and then take the side of his sister at every point. There was even a time where their Airbnb fell through, him and his sister, and Zeta was like, okay, well, you can use the hotel that I had gotten for us. They declined. She knows somebody in her family who organizes hotel arrangements. They declined. She said, y'all can come stay with my family. They declined. It was just like too much. And then she wanted to have breakfast with them the next day after the sister had arrived. They said, nah. At what point, see, I'm looking at both sides and I'm just like, okay, from Timmy's point, like at what point are you going to show me that I'm your partner? But also on Zeta's perspective, I'm thinking too, like, sis, when you love somebody, it is really hard to look past the love because you want those feelings to be real and you want your efforts to be for some reason. You don't want it to go to waste. You know what I mean? However, the constant, deliberate attempts, and fulfilled attempts, honestly, to push you out of his life. Like, at what point were you going to say, you know what? It's enough. Like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. So that's where I'm just kind of like, I wonder if there was something else going on as well. Like, I'm not quite sure, because somebody like Zeta, I feel, would have the wherewithal to look at the situation with Timmy and say, oh, hell no, I'm going to remove myself. And to make matters worse, things actually started to go wrong inside the villa, because there was a Twitter challenge. I don't know if I'm going to do the whole scavenger hunt to go find the clip that she's referring to. However, she said that the comment was basically that she's an upper echelon status than Timmy is, and he had been feeling a way about that from time. Then he would say things like she's entitled, or I'm not going to treat you the way that you're used to be treated by other people, just kind of like knocking her off of this so-called pedestal that he assumed she was on.
And then, of course, I'm just expressing my frustration to him. And he's like, oh, you're so entitled. He always used that on me. And I was like, damn, like, am I? And so I'm sat there like, okay, so maybe I shouldn't be upset. Like, am I being one of those girls? But then I'm like, no, like, this is just like very common sense to me.
So time and time again, this person is chipping at your self-esteem, is making you feel like your self-worth is non-existent. Is basically gaslighting you, because she started to believe, like, am I entitled? Like, am I being rude? Am I being standoffish? Is there something wrong with me? I don't understand what I am doing. And I'm trying to tread softly, because people who enter into emotionally abusive situations typically don't enter knowing that it's going to be emotionally abusive, and then find themselves in the trenches and they're like, I don't even know how to get out because I'm just so far in it. So I can see that being kind of a factor of how she was still in this for so long. But like, I don't know, my heart really hurts for her, because I'm like, girl, this man was very emotionally manipulative, breadcrumbing you, doing enough to keep you around, but not enough to show you that you are his woman, his world, his everything. So it was just a lot for me to process. There was also a situation where, while in the UK, Timmy's sister was not communicating with Zeta. You know, she would reach out, not receive anything back. She had the number, so she knew it was Zeta getting in contact. However, she chose to post on Twitter and tweet at Zeta, basically saying the hotel she was at had a shower for hobbits. Like, yo, Zeta, is this you? Kind of thing. Trying to shame the woman and saying, how can I come to your country and this is the kind of accommodation you put me in? And it's just, yeah, it's very bad vibes coming from the sister. Don't know what the rhyme or reason is for her acting this way. To make matters worse, Zeta found out that Timmy was told by his sister that pursuing a dark-skinned woman would grant him favor with the American public.
Like I said, I will go more into depth about the conversation that I had with his sister, but I do remember one line that she said. She was like, yeah, I told Timmy, like, go for a dark-skinned girl. Like, America loves that. And, you know, he says, you know, when I told him about that, he's like, well, of course, like, my mum's dark-skinned. My sister loves dark-skinned women.
Right.
It's giving Caleb and Justine, and it breaks my heart, because literally we were going through trauma watching Timmy and Zeta, because we were thinking the exact same thing watching the season. I remember people being like, I don't want to fall for this relationship because he reminds me of Caleb. And so post-season, for it to seem like the similar kind of storyline is happening here, it's really sad. It does seem to me as if Timmy was looking for a come up, did not expect to be partnered with a person who he would have to actually commit to. Like, maybe he was caught off guard and then he got caught up in the infatuation of it all, and then realized after the show, like, I didn't even come for this. Like, I don't want this. Zeta also claims that he was very focused on his business and just wasn't emotionally available to nurture a relationship. Listen, the phrase, if he wanted to, he would, is very, very true. And it's not to say that everyone who doesn't do whatever it is that you're looking for doesn't want to. However, being work oriented does not mean you automatically do not have time for your partner. You make time for the things that are important to you. It's clear that Zeta was not important to Timmy. And yeah, that led to the dissolution of their relationship. I hadn't heard anything about them on Twitter, so it's no surprise that they've called it quits. They still have each other on Instagram, like their photos and stuff. But Timmy has a podcast, so I wouldn't be surprised if we hear his side of the story in a few days' time or a few weeks' time, or maybe he'll just stay quiet. Who knows? Y'all let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you in the next one.